What's up, y'all? It's DJ Envy.
And I am Gia Casey.
And this is another edition of Pillow Talk with the Casey crew.
Welcome.
Sorry we haven't seen you guys in 2 weeks, but we've been busy. There's a lot going.
Busy.
And we'll explain the next podcast, which is the Casey Crew podcast. But right now, let's get into everything that's going on. Now, Pillow Talk is basically everything that's going on in the world. Celebrity news, celebrity driven, or just regular news. We tell you about how we feel and we break things down. Now, let's talk about this shooting that took place last week.
In Santa Fe.
Yes, it happened in Texas. 8 students killed, 2 teachers killed. They said a student, he was 17 years old, came to school and busted in the art class and started shooting. Mm-hmm. They said when he came into class, he said surprise, and he pretty much just started shooting everybody.
No, I think he said surprise when there were students that were hiding in the supply closet.
Right, in the supply closet.
I guess, he took it as they had no idea that he knew that they were hiding in there. So when he busted into the closet, he yelled surprise.
Right.
And they tried to hold the door closed, and they used something to force the door closed, and they said that he kept shooting into the closet. When the police arrested him, he said that he only shot kids. He was only shooting at kids that he didn't like. He only shot at people that he didn't like.
Right, because he wanted everybody else to tell his story.
Right.
After he was either killed or arrested.
Right. So it wasn't necessarily a random shooting. A lot of times you hear about these mass shootings in schools, and it's like, a kid goes in with a rifle or, an automatic, and they just let off.
Right.
He knew who he was shooting and who he wasn't.
And anybody who was stopping him, I'm sure he was going to shoot them too. I'm sure the two teachers.
He specifically said that he did not shoot people that he liked.
Yeah, I mean, I think he shot at it's not a police officer. I guess it's a truancy officer that tried to stop him. So he was shooting at pretty much anybody. He knew who he wanted to shoot, but if you got in his way, I'm sure he was going to shoot you.
Quite possibly.
Right. So, the thing with this now is, and this is difficult for me, right? And the reason I want to talk about this story is because there's a couple things I just wanted to break down. One, I think his parents should be charged. The reason I think his parents should be charged is because his parents are the owners of the guns. He got the guns from his parents. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that, and I know that, you can hide things, and I'm a gun owner. But I try to put the guns, I put the guns where my kids can't reach and that are locked up. Like they don't have the combination to the safe to get to the guns. There's certain areas where we hide the guns where they would never know where the gun is. But when you're reckless and your kids have the combination to know where your guns are, you never know what's going to happen.
But I don't know if that's necessarily reckless on the parents' part. He's a 17-year-old kid. He'll be 18 soon. Mm-hmm. And I can't say that I would be worried to have a gun in a safe where my 17-year-old son knew the combination. Unless my child had some type of mental issue.
Correct.
Or a social issue or was disturbed in some way, unless I identified him or her as being depressed. Mm-hmm. If I have a normal, you can say happy, but I guess that doesn't necessarily apply. But if I have a normal child that I can't identify any foreseeable problems with, yeah, you're close to adulthood. I'm not worried if you have the code to the safe where guns are kept.
I'm a little different. I'm going to tell you why. I remember being in high school. I think I was 16 or 17 years old at the time.
You weren't 16 or 17. We were together at that age, and this happened before you and I got together. I know what story you're about to tell.
So maybe 15? It had to be 15. I was in high school.
You got to high school at 14.
Was I 14?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I skipped a grade, and when I got to high school, I was 13 and then turned 14. My sophomore year, I was 14 and then turned 15. So in New York, you were probably 14 and then turned 15 your freshman year.
Okay, so maybe I was 14 or 15.
Right.
And I remember getting into an incident with somebody playing basketball. We was in my backyard playing basketball. A kid was taller than me, and he was pushing me all around and talking mad shit. And at the time, he was way taller than me, and my emotions got the best of me. And I ran upstairs in my dad's closet and I got his gun.
Which is crazy.
Which is crazy. Because I'm not that student. I wasn't a student that, was emotionally messed up and had problems. I wasn't. It was just that moment. And I ran upstairs and I got my dad's rifle and I pointed it at him. You know, thank God I didn't shoot him. But but
yeah,
I wasn't emotionally right to own a gun because at that time my feelings were going anywhere. And I'm a fast forward. And that was that time and I was in high school.
But I'm not talking about you owning a gun. I'm talking about you having access.
I had access
to your parents' gun, but you were 14 or 15 at the time.
Right.
To me, there's a big difference between a 14-year-old and a 17 or an 18-year-old.
Right.
An 18-year-old, you are grown.
Right.
And I don't think that for most 18-year-olds to have the combination to the safe that guns are kept in the house, I don't think in most households that would be a problem. That's like having another adult in your house. Now, if I have an angry child or something like that, of course. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not saying that I would give my 17 or 18-year-old the combination to the safe, but I wouldn't be so concerned if they had it. So getting back to what you were saying, to say that the parents, or to just exclusively say that the parents should be held responsible or charged for, I don't know what you called it, probably negligence.
Right.
Where the child is concerned, I don't necessarily agree with you.
See, I
think that's
so.
too broad of a statement. I think that we would have to know that there was a reason for them to believe that he could use those guns to cause harm to others before you make a statement like that.
See, I disagree because I think that as a gun owner, part of my job to own that gun is also responsibility and to make sure that gun is not in the hands of somebody that might not responsibly use that weapon. And as a gun owner, you know, kids think a little different, you know. They might get into an altercation and get beat up and get embarrassed and say, you know what, I'm going to handle it a different way.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Personalize it. Imagine Logan. He's 14. He's going to be 15 in December. So imagine him in 3 years.
Okay.
Grown, 6 feet tall. Probably a goatee and a mustache at that point.
Right.
Probably working 2 jobs and a girlfriend and, relatively grown at 18. If we were going out of town, for instance, and you've taken him to the gun range. So let's say at 18, he got his gun license.
He can't get it at 18. I get it at 21.
Okay. Well, let's say he knows how to use a firearm.
Correct.
If we were going out of town and he's in the home by himself, and I don't know what the laws are as far as, whether he could use a gun in the home to defend himself or whatever. Is that illegal?
No, he can't.
He cannot. But whichever way, let's say we were going out of town and you gave him the code to the safe.
Correct.
Would you worry about him using it irresponsibly or using it for retaliation on someone that he might have gotten into an argument with? I would have zero worry about our son using a gun.
I would have no worries either because I would remove the gun from that situation.
Okay. You're not understanding what I'm saying.
To answer your question.
So you would have a worry. That directly answer my question. Would you have a worry?
I would not.
If he had the code to the safe and guns were in the safe, would you worry about your 18-year-old Logan having access to that?
Yes.
Why?
I just know at that age, your emotions run differently and run wild. And a lot of times you don't think straight. And I'll be honest with you, I'm my age now, and I just started thinking straight a couple of years ago. So to put that pressure on a child where...
Pressure?
I'm going to tell you pressure because this is the day and age where everything's on camera. And it seems like there's no more... Nobody tries to resolve anything anymore. People try to embarrass. They film things to embarrass. They film things. So the fact that I can possibly get embarrassed, somebody whooped my ass or something happened, and I know I just got beat crazy and the whole class just seen beat me crazy, and I know I can come home and there's a pistol here.
Dude, I think that's a you problem.
It is a me problem.
I'm like, what are we talking about right now?
It is a me problem.
Yeah, I mean,
and I know because of that, I would never want to put my son even in that category. Like never. because I know where I was at that time, and I know what my responsibility was and how I felt with things. And I would never want to. I mean, I could just see. I was the type of kid, I could be driving, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say a group of kids cut me off and curse me out and kick my car.
How you were.
Say kick my car and key my car, whatever maybe. Right now, if somebody did all that, I'd be like, all right, no problem. I'll call the police. Keep it moving. It wouldn't affect me. Back then, it would stay on top of me. Like, I felt like they got the best of me.
Right. And you had to do something.
And I had to retaliate to make myself feel better.
I understand.
And that might be, for instance,
I don't understand using a gun to like blow someone's head off.
I mean, it never
like
starts there.
You sound very extreme.
It never starts there. The gun is usually to scare the shit out of somebody, and it can go any which way from there. So I would never give that much power to my son at this age until I know for a fact. And that doesn't mean, because people make bad decisions, and I wouldn't want his bad decision because I gave him that much power.
Well, I think that your opinion is generated from how you were,
and also
as
what I seen,
a youth,
and also what I seen out there, and when I read these stories all the time.
Right, but I wouldn't put Logan in the same category as how you were.
I don't.
When you were younger,
I don't.
I'm saying all of this to say, no, I'm not saying that we should give Logan the code to the safe.
Right.
I'm not saying that, our kids are grown and they should just have access. What I'm saying is, if he did have access or if he did have the code, I wouldn't be worried because he's mentally and emotionally stable.
Right.
And I don't share the same personality as you. I would never go to the safe to get the gun out unless I felt as though my life was in jeopardy.
Right.
Unless I felt like I had to defend myself. Nobody on the street, no road rage, no bullying in school, nobody's cussing me out could ever get me to a place where I'd be so angry that I would want to physically harm them with a gun.
Okay.
So my perspective is different from yours. My perspective is more so, I trust our children. I know that they're raised right, and that they would make better decisions than possibly you would have at the same age. So I think that's why we differ in opinions.
I think it's the same. As I think I was raised right, and I was raised even worse because my dad was a police officer and told me so much about guns, and that's why I explained guns to Logan. But as a grown-ass man, I just learned the laws about owning a gun in New Jersey, in New York, and all these different states. So for him to give him that much, I wouldn't even want to give him that option to do that. You know what I mean? I just don't want to put him in that position.
Well, I think that that's reasonable too.
So that's why I make sure it's locked up.
But not because I'd be worried that he would harm somebody.
No, I'm not worried.
Because of a ridiculous reason.
But I would never want to give him that option. And just like...
But that's better safe than sorry. So I think that that's a good way of thinking about it as well. What I'm saying is that, on the other hand, I wouldn't worry if he did have the code to the safe that contained guns.
Right.
So to wrap it up in a sense, you're saying that the parents should be held liable?
I think so.
For negligence?
I think so. If they didn't have those guns locked up and those guns were available to that young man, absolutely.
To a 17-year-old?
To a 17-year-old, yes, absolutely.
Okay, my opinion is that that's a broad statement.
Absolutely.
I think for me, I differ in opinion because I think that we need to know if he ever showed any signs of being a danger to others. And that's where I would have enough information to decide whether I agreed with you or not.
A gun is something serious, and especially with so many shootings and so many things going on in these schools with these kids and beefs and fights and shootings. Yes, you definitely have to protect. And just imagine if you lost your kid, and you say, well, how did he get this gun? Well, his dad had the gun in his night table. What you mean? He just walked in the night table and got this gun and was able to use it? Yes, because a lot of times I don't think people at that age might not think. They might not be like, what it is. They say, oh, I know what a gun is. I'm going to go grab it. And I think people think like that, and students think like that. What do you mean
people think like that?
Meaning, for myself, even for me now, having the gun in a safe is, or even better yet, when you drive with your gun in a car, they tell you to put the gun in the trunk.
Mm-hmm. And it has to be in the lockbox.
Well, not in the lockbox. Yes.
It does.
No, it has to be separated from the clip. But the reason...
But it has to be in a box, no?
Yeah, no, it could just be in the trunk. It could be in a box. It could be in a bag.
It can't just be loose in the trunk.
It can. You can have it in a gun bag. It doesn't have to be in a lock box per se. Only when you travel, fly, it has to be in a lock box.
Okay.
But they want you to put it in a trunk. And the reason they want you to put it in a trunk is because if anything happens, they want you to think.
To have a moment to think.
A moment to think.
Clip together. And then that shows intent if you do use it.
Exactly. Right. That's what they want you to think beforehand. You're not allowed to carry that weapon in, unless you have a pickup truck.
Because people are too impulsive.
Exactly. And that's my whole point. Like, I don't want to give him that option. And with this situation, if I lose my child, and I understand things happen. If he broke into the safe, I'd be like, all right, I get it. But if it's just in your nightstand and you don't have it locked up, I got a problem with that. You're an adult. He's a child. Even at 17, he's a kid. You can't allow him to make those decisions. You have to make those decisions. Now, if he's 21 and he's able to buy his own gun, that's something different. But at that age, it has to be done, And also, which is very difficult to me, and I didn't even tell you this, I had to have a conversation with Madison the other day about what to do if she hears gunshots or if there's an active shooter in her school, which is scary to me. Like, I don't want to have a conversation about people shooting and killing her and her friends, but I had to have a conversation. Like, we had to go through a scenario. Like, I was like, if you hear gunshots, you lock the door, close the blinds, barricade the door with your in, and get away from the windows.
Close the blinds. Why?
So that way the shooter can't see who's in that class or not.
Who's in the class?
You know what I mean? If the blinds are closed, the shooter can't see if there's somebody in the class.
But you know what? I got to be honest with you. If I'm the shooter and I'm walking past a classroom and I see the blinds closed,
you're going to assume somebody's there. That's what Madison said.
Yeah, I'm going to assume someone's in there and be like, oh, really? You're going to close the blinds? That would more so attract me to that classroom.
Yeah, Madison said that too.
Do you know what I mean?
But I said, definitely get into class, barricade the door with desks, anything, whatever you can that's heavy. Barricade the door and lay anywhere you can away from windows, away from the door. And then, I told her, if you're in the hallway and a shooting happens, and I said, everybody, if you can't get into a classroom, because they're told to lock all the doors. So a lot of times these kids can't get in the classrooms.
They're stuck in the hallways.
They're stuck in the hallways. And she was like, what about a bathroom? And I said, a bathroom is very dangerous because it leaves you nowhere to go. Anybody could walk into the bathroom and there's nowhere to barricade the bathroom door.
Right.
And then you can't hide in the stall or shoot right through the stall. You could kick open the stall. I said, if you're ever stuck in a hallway like that and somebody's shooting and you can't run or whatever, I said, fall on the floor, play dead. Lay on the floor, play dead. Act like you got shot and die.
Only if he had been shooting in the hallway.
Yeah. I mean, just don't fall on the floor. Shoot.
I didn't shoot you.
I didn't shoot you yet, but all right, here, pal. Right. I said, but if he's shooting, fall on the floor, play dead. I said, be the best dead you could be. And I said, don't text. I said, don't text me long shit. I said, just say, Daddy. All you have to do is shoot her ASAP. That's it. Shoot ASAP. I will be at the school. Because I don't need you texting long messages. No. You just text something small that allows me to know that I know what's going on, and then I'll be there. But, it's scary to have these conversations with our 14-year-old and our 16-year-old. Like, that shit is scary.
We were talking about it on the way to school today, and her opinion was that with all of the coverage, media-wise, that these school shootings are getting, she thinks that it's becoming popular. She thinks that the idea is viral in a sense, that it's so widespread that where kids that might be disturbed might not have considered it before, now they are. As a way out, as a way to retaliate, as a means of revenge.
I agree.
So she thinks that it shouldn't be televised. But I told her, that's not possible. It's news.
Right.
So it has to be covered. It has to be reported. But if there's negativity that comes along with it, then that's just something that comes with the territory.
But I do think that because it's so publicized, it's easy. Like for a kid that wants to be popular, it's easy to be like, I'm gonna get a gun, start shooting, but then my name will be all over the place. I think a lot of people think like that.
A lot of people do think like that. A lot of people do think like that.
But I don't think you can stop that. Like you said, it is news and people are going to talk about it, But
what's so horrible as a parent? You wake up, you send your kids off to school, you tell them goodbye, you give them their hugs and kisses, and you expect to see them at 3:30. And then you get a phone call like this.
Yeah.
Or you see something on the news and your child is one of the children that's not coming home.
You're right.
Sometimes well, that happened. And then something happened here in New Jersey. There was a terrible, terrible, terrible bus accident on the highway I think it was going through the town of Mount Olive. Like I said, out here in New Jersey.
I think it was in Paramus, actually.
No, it happened in Mount Olive. The kids on the bus were on their way to a field trip. Well, they were on a field trip on their way to whatever the destination was. And they were going through Mount Olive when they got into a terrible bus accident, and it was it collided with a dump truck in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And the bus flipped over.
I believe made it an illegal U-turn and a dump truck hit it.
Hold on a minute. I didn't hear that. You said that
I'll say allegedly. The bus made they believe a U-turn. It wasn't supposed to make it.
But I believe it happened on the highway.
And they said missed the exit, made an illegal U-turn.
Are you
in the dump
serious?
I'll say allegedly, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I couldn't even, as a parent, I couldn't even. And the bus flipped over, and one little girl, who I believe is in the 5th grade, I think she's 10 years old.
I believe so, and a chaperone.
Lost her life. And I think it was a teacher. I don't think it was I don't think it was a chaperone. I think a teacher lost her life or his life. I think it's a female. I could be wrong. And several others were injured. And the little girl is a twin, I believe. And that story it sat with me for the last few days. I just find myself in quiet moments thinking about that and trying to sympathize with the parents, with the sibling, with family members, with other people that were there to witness it. Again, you sign the permission slip, you send your kids off to school, you're thinking, oh, they're going to have a great day at their field trip, and I packed them their bagged lunch, and you're expecting to pick them up from school, or them come home on the bus, and you get a phone call and your child is no longer here with us anymore.
Right.
And that hurt my heart. And I saw a picture of the little girl on the news, and I just didn't need to see that. To see, I don't know why. I guess because we have little children and we are signing permission slips, and and it's funny because I told Madison a few years ago, she was going on a field trip, and I was like, you know what, I think I might just take you instead of sending you on the bus. And she's like, why? And I'm like, I don't really trust these bus drivers. There's so much going on the bus. Like, I don't mind so much to and from school. School is in our town. Right. It's a little hop, skip, and a jump.
Right.
Take the little back streets. There's no lights. There's only stop signs. But, to put them on the highway, kids are running up and down the aisles. They're yelling and screaming. They're hopping over the seats. The bus driver, I always imagine that they're distracted. They're turning around, they're yelling at kids and, things of that nature. So I never really felt at ease when it came to these field trips, And then when this happened, I'm like, And you know what else I thought? Can you imagine? Because think about it. On these cheese bus rides, the kids never wear their seatbelts.
No, not at all.
When you were a kid and you were taking did you ever wear your seatbelt?
No.
I never wore my seatbelt. Never wore my seatbelt. I almost thought it wasn't a requirement because I don't remember any chaperones or anyone ever enforcing that we wear our seatbelt on the school bus.
That's correct.
So if a bus like that gets into an accident, the potential for damage, because no one is protected. No one's protected. You're just in there like jelly beans in a can, in a sense. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I know that if I were that mother, and this is what I said to Madison when I heard the story, like if I were that mother, I'd probably feel like, wow, I probably didn't have that conversation with her to wear her seatbelt.
Right.
Maybe if I had, maybe she'd still be here, because there were ejections, like there were people ejected from the bus.
Right.
And that would haunt me so badly. So I just want to send my condolences to everyone that went to that school, anybody that was there for the accident, any family members of anyone that's been hurt or that lost their life. You were in my prayers for the past several days.
Absolutely. But, that's, I wanted to talk about that shooting because it seems like these shootings are happening more and more often. But now let's change subjects a little bit. Let's talk about the royal wedding.
Okay.
The royal wedding. Now,
which we did not see.
No, we didn't see, but I mean, people have been talking about it.
We didn't have enough time to do last week's podcast. I definitely didn't have enough time to watch the royal wedding. Not that I wasn't interested. If I had time, I definitely would have been tuned in, but we haven't had time.
I mean, I wasn't necessarily interested myself. And a lot of people were very tied into it, and a lot of people were mad at it.
Mad at it.
Yeah, but some people said, well, she's a black woman marrying a white man. She shouldn't be marrying a white man. And some people
that's just ignorant. I know
it is. And some people was like, oh, she doesn't consider herself African American. She considers herself biracial.
I heard that. I heard a lot of that actually. Mm-hmm.
My whole thing was I didn't necessarily care about her nationality or if she's black or if she was white, or I just love the fact that it was love. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's what I love. And that's what I was excited that was on television. They said 29 million people watched it. But the fact that they went against the grain to do it their way because they were in love was everything to me. The fact that he wasn't supposed to pick a bride that was divorced and she's been divorced before. Mm-hmm. The fact that usually, her father was supposed to walk her down the aisle, but her father had heart surgery and he allegedly was selling pictures to the paparazzi. So she walked halfway, I think, on her
heart
own.
Attack or not. Like, you're not coming to my wedding.
Well, she walked.
How about that?
She walked halfway down the aisle. Mm-hmm. Just to by herself to show independence. Mm-hmm. And then his father walked her the rest of the way.
So her grandfather.
No.
You said his. Oh, you mean
the groom's father.
Oh, okay. The prince's father.
Yeah,
okay.
The prince's father walked her down. Her mom was there, but I didn't care about that. I just was so happy that love prevailed over
sense,
everything,
right? Mm-hmm.
And that's what I cared about. It didn't care to me that Oprah was there or Idris Elba or the Beckhams were there. I just cared more about the fact that love, and they did it their way, and I was just happy for them that they stepped outside the grain and said, this is not going to be your usual thing, and this is not going to be, and that's what I was excited about. A lot of people were saying, "No, this is a great story that a black woman, she wakes up tomorrow a princess." What? See, but
that makes me feel a way, and I am thinking how to articulate my thoughts.
Well, I didn't care about the princess thing. I don't care about that. Like I said today, I said on the Breakfast Club the other day, I said my daughter's a princess every day. I call Brooklyn a princess. I call London a princess. I call Madison a princess. They are all my princesses. And to think that is our only black princesses. And now I'm not going to sit here and try to kick knowledge to you because I don't know all the knowledge. But we've had black princesses before and black queens before.
Right.
So I don't care about that. I just wanted to be like, I just love the fact that love prevailed, Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you a question. The fact that Meghan said that, she's not African American, she's, what is it?
I think she said she's not black. She's biracial.
Biracial, yes. What do you think about that? You're biracial.
I think she is biracial. Mm-hmm. I'm not biracial. I'm multiracial. Mm-hmm. I'm multiracial.
But you look at yourself as black?
I consider myself black, but let me explain. So like you asked, she is biracial. She's half black, half white.
Correct.
Okay. So she is being very accurate in her description of her background, her heritage. Let me tell you why I have a problem. When it comes to self-identification, when it comes to nationality, race, etc., I'm going to be honest, I agree with her. I agree with her identifying herself as biracial. And this is why. How do I put it so that everybody listening can understand? When you are any nationality or any race and you are part black, it doesn't matter if you're 5%, 10%, you are considered black.
I don't think that necessarily.
It's true.
Let me tell you, I'm gonna give you one example. The rapper Logic. Mm-hmm. They consider him white.
Do they consider him white?
Absolutely.
I think because
he's half black, half white.
I think that people don't necessarily know. Logic looks Caucasian.
He looks white.
He doesn't look part black. So I think that that's ignorance. But if any person has a drop of black blood or African-American blood, Caribbean blood, whatever you call it, I'm just going to put a blanket statement, I'm going to call it black. If you have a drop of black blood, then you're considered black. But if a black person or a multiracial person is predominantly black and they have a drop of white blood, a drop of Indian blood, a drop of Asian blood, they're not considered any of those other things. So herein lays the problem. It makes me feel like that saying, one bad apple spoils the barrel. That's what it brings to mind. It kind of makes me feel like people are saying, if you have a drop of black blood, then you're ruined. Then you're spoiled. That's how it makes me feel. And I have a problem with that. So it's not that like my heart's beating like really fast right now. I really have a problem with that. Mm-hmm. Why is it? Because to me, that makes me feel like being black or part black is looked at as a negative thing. Like, oh, you have a drop of black blood. Now you're ruined. It ruined the 90% of white blood that you have in you. Now you're ruined. You know, we might as well just throw you away. That's how it feels. But if a person's 90% black and they have a 10% white blood, why aren't you considered white? Why? Because white's not bad. That's how it makes me feel. So I don't like that. So for her to say I'm biracial, I'm half black, I'm half white, that's accurate. That's what she is. Maybe she doesn't claim black per se because maybe she doesn't identify as much with black. Because with me, for those of you listening that don't know my background, most of you probably do because we've talked about it a couple of times. My mother's mother is half Chinese, half Jamaican. My mother's father is Caucasian. My mother's father is Scottish. My father is Puerto Rican. So technically, I have more Spanish blood in me or Puerto Rican blood in me than anything else. I consider myself black. If I'm asked, and I just have to give a short answer without an explanation, I consider myself black. The reason is because I didn't spend much time with my Puerto Rican family. My father was much older than my mother when he married her. Most of his family were back in Puerto Rico. The people that were here, his people that were here, they died off as I started getting older. So I never really knew them. Mm-hmm. My mother's father, who, like I said, is Scottish, he passed away when she was 16. A lot of his people were back where they came from. I barely met any of them. I've only seen pictures. The family that I grew up with were the Chinese Jamaicans. They were prevalent in my life. I grew up listening to dance hall and eating Chinese food. You know, like that is my background. And that's what I identify with. I identify with that culture. I identify with everything surrounding that. So it's very easy for me to consider myself black, but it's based on identification.
Right. But what about the feeling that, you know, a spot of black in you is so good that everybody wants to be black?
Say that again. What do you mean?
You remember you said a drop of black. Well, what about the saying of a drop of black in your blood makes it so good that everybody wants to be black?
I don't know that everybody wants to be black, and that's my problem.
Oh.
I think that other cultures definitely borrow or are influenced by black culture.
Hands down.
Hands down. I mean, more than any other culture in the world.
More than any other
I
culture.
believe.
Correct. Absolutely.
But if you ask the vast majority of those people, if they would want to switch who they are and what their race is with being a member of the black race, I don't think that they would choose that. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? So it's easy to remain your same race and borrow from another race or borrow from another culture. But those people wouldn't switch shoes with that black person at the same time, 9 times out of 10. So I just don't like people looking at being black as a negative.
Right.
And I know that a lot of black people want to claim Meghan. You know, like, and that bothers me because it makes me feel like, oh, we've made it. Like, what do you mean we've made it? You know, it wouldn't be that big of a deal if he married a white woman.
Right.
You know, like that white woman's family isn't sitting there like, oh, no. Like, but us, like, we're like, oh, we've made it.
Right.
No, I think that African Americans Black people across the globe are great. Like members of other nationalities and other races are great. We are all great. And I think that we should spend more time concentrating on the love story.
Absolutely.
Than the races involved. And that's not to say that I don't understand that mothers can show their young daughters to say, look, you're not excluded. So I think that there's value in that. Like, you're not excluded. You can look, just like, we like to look at the television and see people that look like us. And I'm not just talking about Black people. I'm talking about all minorities, like all of us that aren't on the screen just as a token, because you have your token Asians, you have your token Indians, you have your token Blacks, you have your token everything, because, a majority of our world seems to be predominantly white, so there's value in being able to look at television screen and seeing an actor, an actress, or an entertainer, or an athlete, or, an attorney, or a doctor, or a humanitarian, or a fundamental, like whoever that looks like you, because you can use it as a reference point. So I think that that's fantastic. So that's not lost on me. I just don't like operating or thinking from a place of inferiority. And that's my point.
And I agree with you. I mean, I feel like, she can identify herself as whatever she wants. If she's half Black, half white, she's multicultural, multiracial, I'm fine with that. Whatever you think. But I don't care about that. I just care about the love story. And I love the fact that they showed that on TV, because a lot of times I'm tired of seeing people bickering and beefing, and we need to show more love. And congratulations to them. I hope they have a bunch of kids, and I hope they really enjoy their life,
And also, people don't know why she calls herself biracial, aside from the obvious point that she is biracial. She may have grown up with her Caucasian family and doesn't really relate as much to the Black culture.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And maybe she doesn't subscribe to the whole, one bad apple spoils the barrel mentality. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, I am just as much strong Black as I am strong white. There you have it. That's what I am.
Absolutely.
I check both boxes. So I'm with her on that. Anyway.
All right. Well, it's time to get up out of here. That was Pillow Talk. And we will see you guys this week for the Casey Crew podcast. We'll explain to you where the hell we've been and what we've been doing. So we'll see you guys later on this week.
Oh, and I also want to add, from now on, what we're going to do is, if a podcast is going to be up late, or if we aren't going to record one for the week, we are going to make you aware on the podcast Instagram, which is...
Hold on, I'm pulling it up. You put me on the spot.
Wait, you don't know it off
No, I
the
don't
bat?
know it off the bat. Hold on.
You created it.
I know, but I don't remember it. I don't know if it has a "the" on it or not. Hold on. Okay, it's the Casey Crew podcast.
That's it.
The Casey Crew podcast. That is it.
Okay. So from that, follow that Instagram, and we will keep you posted with when they're going to drop. And I mean, of course, we like to drop them on time Monday morning and Wednesday morning, but sometimes life gets in the way and we're unable to. So we'll keep you posted so that you're not sitting there checking to see if it's up or not. Anyway.
I'm DJ Envy.
And I am Gia Casey.
And that was Pillow Talk with the Casey Crew.
Toodles.